Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. Today, we are talking about a somewhat thorny subject, but it's actually a little old. I came across this article from The Hollywood Reporter that when Bros Bomb star Billy Eichner put the blame on the audience. And I know this article is well over a week old. It came out on October 4th, but there's actually a point in this article that I agree with. It's in the very last paragraph, so let's just read that portion of it. As someone pointed out the other day in a Twitter conversation I was tagged in, moviegoing isn't a charity, and audiences have no obligation to see movies to prove their values. Let's repeat that. Moviegoing isn't a charity, and audiences have no obligation to see movies to prove their values. I think you and I can agree with this, but most crazy people you cannot reason with. And obviously the first point I want to tackle is that Bros bombed at the box office. And going back through this article here, if you can't tell, I'm recording this podcast style. I couldn't be bothered scripting this out. Here we go. Bros' dismal opening of just $4.8 million and a string of eyebrow-raising tweets from writer star Billy Eichner has sparked conversation about why the well-reviewed gay rom-com failed, and if audiences should feel obligated to make a trip to theaters to prove they want to see inclusivity. Dun 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 dun. Here we go. What Eichner is overlooking is that a significant population of the LGBTQ community didn't show up either to the movie. It wasn't just straight people that were terrified of Bros, as he said right here in this tweet. Straight people, especially in certain parts of the country, just didn't show up for Bros. He followed that with, quote, "Everyone who isn't a homophobic weirdo should go see Bros tonight." Again, it wasn't just that straight people were terrified to go see Bros. It was also the fact that a large portion of the gay community also did not show up. But this actually leads to a much bigger point in that, is Billy Eichner's attempt at shaming the audience even going to work? No, it isn't. And let's actually look at the past. Let's actually compare two movies. Let's compare The Woman King to Black Panther. Who remembers when Black Panther came out in 2018? It was absolutely all the flippin' rage. You even had like a Twitter hashtag was like Black Panther Challenge. I think it was like you run out of the theater, you do a dance, and that's how you re-enter it. I don't remember. It was quite a few years ago. But I remember when a couple of critics actually came out and actually gave the movie negative review scores, and oh my god, heads fucking exploded at the time, because Black Panther had a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes until these two evil critics decided to come along and share their fucking opinions. Here we go. I'm getting this from Complex. Unfortunately, that perfect score was ruined on Thursday by a critic named Ed Power from the Irish Independent. And the write-up, Power says, quote, "Black Panther spirals into a stodgy tale of and I'm gonna mispronounce this word, internecine feuding." Power adds, quote, "The strain of the film's expectations are visible, especially in the performance of Chadwick Boseman as Prince T'Challa, the eponymous Black Panther. In the context of the place the United States finds itself today and where it has come from, Boseman knows he can't wisecrack his way through the film in the fashion of, for example, Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark, and the responsibility to be at all times sincere weighs on him." Basically, what Ed Power said was there weren't enough jokes in the movie. Not like it wasn't a standard Marvel movie. But here we go. Shortly after Powers' review was published, he was joined by another buzzkill, Louise Keller from Urban Cinephile. Her review opens up with the line, quote, "The trouble with the highly anticipated Black Panther is that it doesn't know what it wants to be. Superhero extravaganza, activist action flick, James Bond wannabe, or Coming to America." And like I said, guys, oh my god, heads absolutely exploded that Black Panther, instead of getting a 100% Rotten Tomatoes score, it got a 98% Rotten Tomatoes score. And let's actually take a look at Black Panther's box office. Budget of $200 million, though, gross worldwide. $1 billion, that's billion with a B, $1,347,597,973 worldwide. The gross in the U.S. and Canada alone was $700,426,566. Now, let's compare that to The Woman King. Had a very similar type of setup. Viola Davis tweeted out, either go see this movie or strong women leads aren't going to be a thing. Blah 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 blah. I don't really remember what she said, nor do I care. But the big thing with The Woman King, the big backlash from it, was all of the accusations of historical revisionism, and the accusations grew so loud that the filmmakers actually had to respond to the issue. Coming from the Los Angeles Times here, published on September 28th, 2022, I'm just going to read the meat and potatoes here. Quote, "My issue is that the history that they think we are revising, they are actually parroting incorrectly," said Prince Blythewood of the quote-unquote manufactured conspiracies and conflicts that circulate online. And there's a great irony in that, a great sadness. Literally, you're speaking on something that you actually don't really know the truth about, and it feels like you're doing the work of the oppressor. Now, did this line of defense help out The Woman King? Let's take a look at the box office here. I don't even remember when The Woman King released. Hold on. Okay, released on September 16th. So it's been out of theaters by this point. Budget of $50 million. The gross worldwide, $64,775,677, and the gross of U.S. and Canada was $54,775,677. So obviously the strategy did not work to try to come out and shame all the people that are decrying that, oh, The Woman King is a revisionist history. And something that a lot of the Phantom Menace channels did not point out with The Woman King. What happened with The Woman King is actually very similar to what happened with Roots. For those of you that don't remember or don't care, Roots, based on the book by Alex Haley, was arguably one of the most successful TV miniseries of all time. Hold on, let me actually look up this figure, because I want to make sure I'm getting it right. I want to actually look up the ratings. Here we go. This should be it. Yeah, you think it would be it, but then you have broadcast history and all this other crap. I believe that the ratings, I think Roots was viewed by over 130 million people. Okay, here we go. I found the ratings by the millions. Okay, Roots Part 1, 28.84 million. Roots Part 2, 31.4 million. Roots Part 3, 31.9. Roots Part 4, 31.9. Roots Part 5, 32.5. Roots Part 6, 32.68. Roots Part 7, 30.12. Roots Part 8, 36.38. So, again, still, one of the most successful TV miniseries of all time, but nobody really remembers Roots from that regard. Oh, crap. Okay, I'm going to have to pause the recording for just a quick second and come right back. I'm running into some technical difficulties with one of these articles. Okay, I've fixed the problem. Like I said, guys, that's probably just a millisecond for you, but it took a couple of minutes for me. But here we go. This snippet coming from The Guardian with regards to Roots from their article that's titled "Roots of the Problem: The Controversial History of Alex Haley's Book." So here we go. In 1977, Roots did a rare double, winning a Pulitzer Prize and a National Book Award, in both cases a quote-unquote special citation. But that was before Haley was forced to settle a plagiarism suit out of court, conceding the following year that parts of it were lifted from a 1967 novel, The African, and before significant elements of the book's family history unraveled when investigated. No documentary evidence could be found for parts of the 19th century story, and the griot, who was his sole source in the Gambia, may have just been amiably telling him what he wanted to hear. most of us feel it's highly unlikely that Alex actually found the village, hence his ancestors sprang, tutted his friend Henry Louis Gates Jr., the Pope of African American Studies, in 1998, calling Roots, quote-unquote, a work of the imagination. The autobiography has also been criticized for distorting the facts of Malcolm X's life to give its narrative shape. Here we go, and here's the point of this. Had Haley presented Roots from the outset as a novel or overwhelmingly fictional, the doubts about his authenticity wouldn't have mattered. But he didn't. His appendix stressed how far he went to corroborate his family's quote-unquote oral history via documents found in 50-odd archives over 12 years of digging, while acknowledging that most of the dialogue and incidents are a novelized amalgam of knowledge and hunch. So instead of being acclaimed as one of the pioneers of creative nonfiction or the nonfiction novel, the autobiography appeared in 1965, a year before Truman Capote's In Cold Blood. Usually regarded as the first experiment with such genre fluidity, he is viewed askance by the binary-minded literary academic establishment. A lot of fucking word salad without saying a whole lot. Not a pure enough novelist and possibly too vulgarly popular to be lined up alongside those he paved the way for, nor a credible enough scholar to be treated as a forerunner for the black historians whose careers Roots made possible. So again, I'm honestly shocked that the fundamentalists themselves did not point out this inconsistency between Roots and the Woman King, because what's happening with the Woman King is very similar to what happened with Roots back in the 80s, even going into the 90s. And the next point that I want to bring up, because I don't want to hang on this forever, is I want to look at all of these female-centric reboots that have been coming out over the last 6-7 years. Now, many people point to Ghostbusters as the real ground zero for it. And I think the reason a lot of people point to Ghostbusters as the ground zero is because that was the first female-centric reboot to genuinely bomb. I actually point the finger to Mad Max Fury Road for being ground zero, but because that was successful, nobody considers it ground zero. And depending on what sources that you read, you could have read Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, even sites, even on non-credible sites like We Got This Covered or Bounding Into Comics. But anyway, that's not the point. Depending on what source you read, Ghostbusters 2016 cost Sony anywhere between $70 to $120 million. That's how damaging Ghostbusters 2016 was for them. In fact, Ghostbusters 2016 was so damaging, it's actually led to the theory that Ghostbusters Afterlife was made as an apology. And look no further than the fact that Ghostbusters Afterlife is not a sequel to Ghostbusters 2016, makes no freaking reference to Ghostbusters 2016, and actually brings back 3 of the 4 original Ghostbusters, minus Harold Ramis, of course, because he passed away in 2014. Then I like to look at something like Ocean's 8. I wouldn't really consider Ocean's 8 to be an all-star cast, because you really only have 3 big names in the female-centric reboot of Oceans. Sandra Bullock, Cate Blanchett, and Anne Hathaway. And, the movie came out, made on a budget of $70 million, and it grossed $297,795,726 worldwide. Now, for a budget of $70 million, that's not terrible, but probably not the box office hit that Warner Brothers wanted. In fact, if we compare this to Ocean's 13, which is considered by many, many fans of the George Clooney Ocean's trilogy to be the absolute worst movie in the trilogy, that movie grossed $311,312,624 worldwide, and that number is unadjusted for inflation. So unadjusted for inflation, the worst movie of the Ocean's trilogy starring George Clooney and Brad Pitt made more money than the all-female centric reboot of 2018. And sorry, I stumbled over my own words there. But anyway, let's move on. Then let's take a look at what was arguably a direct shot at James Bond in The Spy Who Dumped Me. literally a play on The Spy Who Loved Me, starring Roger Moore and what's her nuts? Barbara Bach. I almost forgot her name. One of my all-time favorite James Bond movies, and I couldn't remember that. But this movie, another one, came out in 2018. Made on a budget of $40 million. Oh, sorry. Also starred, I believe, Mila Kunis and Kate McKinnon were both in it. But anyway, budget of $40 million. It only grossed $75,339,459 worldwide. There was another one, if I'm remembering. I know I'm typing, but you guys obviously can't see what I'm typing. Yes, this is the one I was thinking of. Was Proud Mary. Another movie came out around the same time. Was another direct shot at James Bond. Budget of $14 million, starring Taraji P. Henson. It only grossed $21,753,365 worldwide. And even if you look at the female-centric John Wick ripoff titled Atomic Blonde with Charlize Theron and James McAvoy, many people were saying that this movie absolutely deserved to bomb. It actually didn't bomb, but it didn't make as much money as they were probably hoping. Budget $30 million, gross worldwide was $100,014,025. Again, not necessarily a box office bomb, but not a box office hit at the same time. And then let's jump over to what was arguably probably like the one thing you could consider the female James Bond, mostly because it was produced by the same people behind James Bond, Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson, with the rhythm section. Now, the rhythm section came out in 2020, and I know the first line of defense. It's not fair to compare the box office of 2020, man, because of COVID. Every movie lost money that year. Ha 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 ha. Okay, let's dispel this fucking myth. The rhythm section came out on January 31st, 2020, meaning it had well over a month in theaters before the theaters were forced to shut down. So it is fair to look at this, and it's fair to call the rhythm section a box office bomb. Budget of $50 million, starring Blake Lively, and only grossed, get ready, $5,989,583 worldwide. That's it. And this is January 31st, 2020. Let's put this into perspective of another movie that came out around the same time. I believe came out on the same day. Bad Boys for Life. I believe it came out. No, it came out January 17th. I do apologize. But still, Bad Boys for Life came out around the same time as the rhythm section. So let's put this into perspective for the box office at the time. Bad Boys for Life, budget of $90 million. Now, obviously, Bad Boys for Life was made before the Will Smith Oscar slap, but Bad Boys for Life grossed worldwide $426,505,244 worldwide. The third movie in a series that that didn't have a sequel for 17 years. So again, it's just that. The reason I took a look at Bad Boys for Life, as I said, because I wanted to show how healthy the box office actually was in January of 2020. The rhythm section was just a straight up bomb. And I know what a lot of people are thinking. Like, I know I'm focusing on a lot of the failures, and the common line of defense is going to be, you know that Captain Marvel was a success, man. Okay, Snowflake, let's actually look at the success of Captain Marvel. Because if we look at the box office, by box office numbers, you are actually correct. Budget of $160 million. Gross worldwide was $1 billion, and yes, that's billion with a B, $1,128,462,972 worldwide. But let's genuinely examine why Captain Marvel was a box office hit. And I argue it comes down really to two things, maybe three. The first thing was that this movie came out right before Avengers Endgame. And the marketing behind the movie was that you have to see Captain Marvel in order to understand Avengers Endgame. Now, hindsight being 2020, we know that is complete and utter bullshit. You did not need to see Captain Marvel in order to understand Avengers Endgame. In fact, Captain Marvel came out and actually created more questions than it solved. The second reason that I feel that it's so popular is solely because of the backlash. Let's be honest, all of these, movie blogs and Fandom Menace channels at the time that were trying to get hashtag Smilegate off the ground because, Brie Larson looks so bored in the movie, or anti-Brie Larson this, anti-Brie Larson that. My God, a lot of these movie blogs gave Captain Marvel a hell of a lot more exposure than a goddamn Super Bowl ad would have. So of course it made money. Now, most people will probably agree, and there was actually a person in my comments section recently, I think it was on my last video on the Fandom Menace, actually made this comment, and I do apologize if you're watching this, I do not remember your name, but I remember you saying something about the fact, that Captain Marvel was just an average superhero movie, probably would have been top 50 when it came out, because this was Marvel Studios, but because of all of this exposure that the Fandom Menace generated, on top of being a lead-in to Avengers Endgame, it made a fuck ton more money than it probably should have, and I do largely agree with that. And guys, I know that I have been talking for quite a while, and I have a few more points to make. So let's actually take a quick little break, just to give me a little break from talking, and also give you guys a bit of a breather, because I know we've been going for quite a while now. We've been going for over 20 minutes. So let's take a quick commercial break, watch some vintage commercials from, the 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, whatever the fuck I feel like. And we'll go ahead and we'll come right back with this presentation.
With the help of Subway's low-fat sandwiches and exercise, summer's looking good for a lot of people.
Feeling good, having fun in the sun. Subway's taste is number one. Look at us now, we're living right. And we owe it to the man who showed us the light.
And how's Jared these days? He's looking better than ever. Subway has 7 delicious fresh-made sandwiches with just 6 grams of fat or less, and a lot of other smart ideas.
Come to Subway and take a bite.
Subway, eat fresh.
You boys new around here?
Yeah, I'm A&W Pop-Tart. And I'm Orange Crush Pop-Tart.
Well then, 2 big swigs on me.
She was really cool.
Can't hold your soda, boys?
Crazy good!
Big Mac, please.
Big Macs are coming.
Coming right up. We're getting it together.
We're making it up. 2 all-beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese.
On a bun with sesame seeds.
Big Macs are coming. Pickles, onions, too. Together, we're putting it together for you. Big Mac. McDonald's and you.
Could switching to Geico really save you 15% or more on car insurance? Does Elmer Fudd have trouble with the letter R?
Shh! Be very quiet. I'm hunting rabbits.
Okay, cut. I'm hunting rabbits, Elmer. Let's try that again.
Shh! I'm hunting rabbits.
Cut! Rabbits.
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 Rabbits?
Rabbits with an R.
Oh, this director's starting to rub me the wrong way.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
We're back with vanilla latte and chocolate mocha, coffee-flavored Pop-Tarts. Well, I'll drink to that. Me likey a latte. Crazy good.
To say thanks for making Subway footlongs famous, get any piled high regular footlong for just $5. $5 footlongs. Hurry, a celebration this great won't last long. At Subway.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
Alright guys, welcome back from that commercial break. So let's get right back into our presentation of Moviegoing Isn't a Charity. And the next point I want to bring up is actually the success of Crazy Rich Asians. So if we look at Crazy Rich Asians, it was a rom-com. released in 2018. It had a production budget of $30 million, and its worldwide gross at the time was $238,843,729 worldwide, with most of that money being generated in the U.S. and Canada. The gross in the U.S. and Canada was $174,837,452 worldwide, which, if you're going to have a gross of over $200 million on a production budget of 30, that's considered a box office hit. But going back to this article here from the Hollywood Reporter about Billy Eichner pointing the blame at the audience for not showing up, I'm trying to find where. Here we go. Because they even bring up the success of Crazy Rich Asians. Hence why I'm bringing it up. This paragraph here coming from that article. Even a film like Crazy Rich Asians, which didn't become a box office success solely through Asian audiences, provided an enticing element of spectacle in seeing Singapore's wealth on screen and the musicality of director Jom En-chu's visuals. Most comedies and rom-coms, if they aren't high concept, present themselves as movies that feel like they can wait for streaming. So yes, had Crazy Rich Asians not taken place in Singapore, it probably would not have worked. And if we look over here at the numbers and we track the box office, if we look at weekly box office performance, it was number one the weekend it premiered, obviously. And it was actually number one at the box office the weekend of August 17th, weekend of August 24th, and weekend of August 31st. It was on August 31st, not 34th, August 31st. So if we look at Crazy Rich Asians, it was the number one movie at the box office throughout the month of August 2018, with it dipping to number two on September 7th, and then number 5 on September 14th, so on and so forth. Right, the longer a movie remains in theaters, the more spots it's going to drop. That's actually pretty normal. But what isn't normal is being number one at the box office for 3 weekends in a row. That is actually a pretty rare feat to accomplish. And the other example that they bring up here in the article with regards to, you know, most comedies and rom-coms, that they aren't high concept, present themselves as movies that can just wait for streaming. The movie that they bring up is Long Shot, with this paragraph right here. This was made abundantly clear when Lionsgate. Hold on. I missed the setup. I do apologize. Here we go. Here's the setup. It's easy to understand why Universal and Eichner, best known for his roles on television, may have expected an opening similar to Apatow's R-rated rom-com Trainwreck starring Amy Schumer, another love him or leave him style comedian with a big personality and a reputation for television. That film opened to $30 million in 2015, but it's not 2015 anymore, and comedy has been on a downward trend in terms of actually getting audiences to come to a theater to watch. This was made abundantly clear when Lionsgate's Seth Rogen / Charlize Theron-led rom-com Long Shot underperformed at the box office, alarming Hollywood studios and pundits about the future of theatrical comedy. If Rogen, a 21st century comedy icon, and Theron, a beloved Oscar winner, couldn't sell a movie, what hope did anyone else have? Even then, Long Shot opened to $9.7 million, a figure Universal would have likely broken out champagne for, albeit the cheap kind, had Bros made as much. And here's the next point that we're going to go into, is that comedy has actually been in quite a decline. Looking at this article here from The Atlantic, Hollywood is giving up on comedy. And if you guys think that this article was published recently, quite contraire. This article was published on July 3rd, 2014, years and years prior to COVID hitting. But here we go. Okay, the Hollywood comedy is in decline, and there is a totally unfunny reason why. So they go into chart here, comedy films as a percentage of total releases. We see that in 2010, the studios released more comedies than average. 2011's about the same, but then it starts to go on a bit of a decline, you know, between 2011 to 2012. 2013 is a slight increase, and then 2014 is another decrease. Here we go. As the above chart from Nomura shows, the output of comedies as a proportion of total releases at the biggest Hollywood studios is in structural decline. Blame it on, or thank it if you prefer, the globalization of box office returns. They're not blaming this decision on streaming. They're blaming it on the globalization of the global box office. While fewer Americans are going to the movies, and if you actually look at the statistics, movie theater attendance has been on a downward trajectory ever since the year 2000. And if you actually believe Business Insider, movie theater attendance has actually been on a decline since the 1950s. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I've actually already covered that subject in an interview that I did with Bob Trait, the marketing director of the famous Colonial Theater in Pennsylvania. Most of you might remember it from the Blob. It's on this channel that you're watching, so go and check it out. I don't remember what I actually titled it, but it was like a 2.5-hour interview. Again, I already covered it, so I don't want to retread over old ground, but here we go. While fewer Americans are going to the movies, it is a totally different story in many other parts of the world where cinema is booming. Non-US moviegoers account for about 70% of global box office receipts last year, being 2013, which hit $35.9 billion, compared to about 63% in 2007. Emerging economies are responsible for most of that growth, and there is plenty of room for more because there are significantly fewer cinema screens per capita and lower ticket prices in these countries than in the US. But the emerging world enthusiasm for Hollywood films does not extend to comedies, or at least not relative to its love for action movies and animated films. In China, for example, US comedies only account for 10% of box office spending, compared to 25% in the US, Nomura says. By contrast, Hollywood action films are 44% of the box office in China. The latest Transformers release has broke just about every box office record in the country, as against 36% in the US, and the Transformers movie that they're talking about is arguably the worst one, and that is Transformers Age of Extinction. Comedy is the least profitable genre for studios, and this is true. Average total profit per film from 2004 to 2013. Animation is $235 million in average profit. Action is $138 million average. Drama is $46 million average profit. Comedy is only 31 million in average profit. And then, okay, well that's average total profit, but then average gross profit. Animation sits at 52% average gross profit. Action sits at about 40% gross profit. Drama sits at 30% gross profit, but comedy only has a 22% gross profit margin, according to this graph here. And the ruthless profit machine that is Hollywood is responding. Fox in particular has scaled back its comedy output significantly from 44% of releases in 2010 to just 8% this year, 2014. Disney is not releasing any comedies this year, according to Nomura's analysis. The decline of comedy is a trend that has been underway for a while now. Hollywood's reluctance to make comedies is also explained by declining DVD sales itself, caused by growth in streaming services like Netflix, which are commissioning their own original content, including comedy television. Still, over the years, comedy figures like Jerry Lewis, weirdly popular in France, have occasionally been a useful quote-unquote soft power foreign policy tool for the U.S. At another time of geopolitical uncertainty, if the world doesn't think America is funny anymore, could it actually be a problem? So yes, the comedy genre itself is in decline. So the reason why Bros probably failed is just simply due to the inevitable decline. And I would argue that comedy being in a decline, it actually has something to do with the raise in average movie ticket prices. If we look at NATO's website, the National Association of Theater Owners, and we look between 1995 and 2019, 2019 was the last year that they reported. 1995, the average ticket price was $4.35. In 2019, average ticket price was $9.16. Now, if we jump over to this article here from IndieWire, they're actually making the claim that the average movie ticket price is now $11, and this was published on October 4th of 2022, the exact same date as Hollywood Reporters report on Billy Eichner's Bros bombing and the fact that Billy Eichner put the blame on the fans. But anyway, let's get into the meat and potatoes. Here's something that the National Association of Theater Owners doesn't want to tell you. Ticket prices have increased at least 20% since 2019 for an average price of $11. It didn't used to be this way. NATO usually provides an annual average ticket price, usually in April. That stopped, understandably, in 2020 when theaters faced COVID closures. However, there's been no NATO update from its now 3.5-year-old 2019 average of $9.16. Why not? Per a NATO spokesperson, the changing market conditions related to the current release schedule include different levels of attendance by families and older audiences. That makes announcing an adjusted price difficult. Meaning, if there were more movies, more kids and more senior citizens would be in attendance, and that would drive down the average price with their ticket discounts. That's circumstantial comparisons between 2019 and today, the spokesperson says, were quote-unquote apples and oranges. It's true. The world is very different than it was pre-pandemic, and particularly for exhibition. Box office in 2022 currently stands 66% at 66% of 2019. Many films that would once go to theaters now debut on streamers. COVID hasn't gone away, and theaters are still trying to claw back to audiences, blah, 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 blah. Here's how we arrived at a 20% increase. The best evidence comes from the last earnings call of AMC. The biggest exhibitor said ticket revenue rose 22% from second quarter 2019 to second quarter 2022. With many of their top theaters located in major cities, AMC does have higher than average prices, but that's always been the case. We docked the extra 2% because AMC also has a higher than average number of premium price screens. Speaking with multiple studio sources, they also estimate a minimum increase of 20%. So if we look at, and I know I tangented for quite a bit, so if we look at the rise in average ticket price, and we look at the decline of comedy, I think they kind of go hand in hand. Because now that you're spending close to, $10 just to go to a movie, or IndieWire claims that number is now, that average movie ticket price is now up to $11, but still. Point is, if you're spending $8, $9, $10 to go to a movie, you're going to want to make that movie worth it. You're not going to take a risk on something like a comedy that, in all honesty, you can probably hold out, 2 or 3 months for it to come to a streaming service versus like the latest Marvel movie or latest Fast and Furious movie. No matter what you think of the quality of them, the fact that they are, Hollywood blockbusters, Hollywood epics, big budget, extravagant, special effects spectacles, crash, boom, bah, that's going to probably attract more audiences, especially at the price point. Like I said, if you're paying like $8, $9, $10 to go to the movies nowadays. So yeah, let's not pretend that rising ticket prices have not the rise in average ticket prices have not contributed to the decline that comedy itself is facing. Audiences don't want to go just for a comedy; they want to go for comedy plus. And this article, and I'll circle back to this Hollywood Reporter article published on October 4th. Where was it? Sorry guys, I'm jumping all over the place. And as I said, I am recording this podcast style. What's funny is I did just have it. Yeah, go figure. The one time you need it is the time that you don't have it. So what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to go ahead and take a pause of the recording. I'm going to come right back. It's going to literally be a millisecond for you, but it's going to be 2 minutes for me. Okay, guys, I found it. Here it is. It's becoming increasingly clear, even more so during the pandemic, that comedies no longer often draw huge crowds. It's a disappointing reality, but if people are going to go to the movies, and yes, still risk COVID, they want to go for spectacle, such as Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum's recent hit adventure rom-com, The Lost City. If audiences are going to be enticed to a theater for comedy, they want comedy plus. And they can get that from most Marvel movies, quite a few horror movies, Scream, Nope, Barbarian, and even blockbusters like Top Gun Maverick. But to tie this back to the main topic at hand, that moviegoing is not that, here we go. Moviegoing isn't a charity, and audiences have no obligation to see a movie to prove their values. I know this video went absolutely all over the place, but I wanted to illustrate a much larger point and just show the history of it, that yes, at one point in time, you could absolutely pressure somebody into going to see a movie, whether or not they even wanted to go see it, for and the justification for it would be quote unquote for the cause. But now that's starting to get a lot harder, especially given the fact, as I brought up, that the average ticket price has been increasing. So who's to say that people aren't being a lot more cautious with the movies that they want to go see now? Oh, excuse me. given the fact that, again, you're paying $8, $9, $10 for all of these, you know, to go to a movie now. I have a brain fart right now. I'm gonna pause the recording real quick and come right back. Basically, to close this video out, no one has an obligation to see a movie just because. If no one wants to see The Woman King, don't go see The Woman King if you don't want to see The Woman King. It's really that simple. And all of this social media pressure from Billy Eichner and saying, you know, you oh, it was just all of the homophobic weirdos and straight people that avoided my movie, to Viola Davis coming out and saying something to the effect of on Twitter that if you don't support The Woman King, there goes strong black female leads, blah, 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 blah. No. The time of social media pressure is absolutely over. You know, and exactly, look at the box office return for a movie like Bros. Look at the box office returns for The Woman King. Hell, look at the box office returns for the 355. That was another like female James Bond inspired. Got reviewed absolutely horribly with I think it was Jessica Chastain, Penelope Cruz. If you look here, budget of $75 million, gross worldwide was only $27,824,796. Now, it did come out January of 2022, but it also got absolutely destroyed when it came to reviews. Let me pull up the Rotten Tomatoes score of that movie real quick, because it is quite low. The 355. Fuck you. I will not disable my ad blocker for Rotten Tomatoes. Oh, come on. Here we go. The 355. Here we go. Yeah. The average tomato meter score was only 24%. I don't really trust the audience score of 86%, mostly because there is kind of a backlash against critics. That's like, oh, if critics hate the movie, that must mean that it's actually good, blah, 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 blah. But again, did social media pressure actually cause the 355 to be a box office hit? No. Did social media pressure cause The Woman King to be a box office hit? No. Is social media pressure going to cause Bros to be a box office hit? Fuck no. And guys, I'm going to go ahead and end it right here because I know I've dragged this out probably way longer than I needed to go, way longer than I originally intended to go. I actually ran out of LA Noire footage and had to actually switch footage here in the last couple minutes. That's how fucking long I went. So if you guys stuck around this long, thanks so much for doing so. And if you've been following along, you know I'm terrible at ending these videos, so I will just see you guys next time.